to Vasquez.
Freshman Payne, who's driving, floats it.
And here comes the message on the floor. With 2 seconds. Here it goes for the win.
What is up, Terps fans? Welcome into your recap of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I figured that'd be a more effective use of all of our time to just talk through one of the greatest movie trilogies in our lifetime here. I'm going to go through the movies one by one. This could take multiple hours. But again, it's a better use of our time than anybody going back and watching Maryland play Iowa. That was an absolute masterclass in what not to do if you're a Maryland basketball team that wants to win Big Ten basketball games. You can't afford to go out and shoot so poorly, turn the ball over so much, and give up so many open looks. That's just the perfect storm of how to lose to average basketball teams, which is what Maryland does. Final score is 83-64. If you watched the preview, you heard me talk about how slow a pace this is for Iowa. The fact that they hung 83 points on you just says how little defensive resistance there was for the Terps tonight. I think this is one of the worst Maryland teams I've seen offensively, for sure. But defensively, where we thought this team would hang its hat, it's not very good on that end either, which is honestly surprising and disappointing. If you told me they were bad shooting the ball, we would all have been like, yeah, okay, but they do all of these other things so well. But they are not doing any of that so far this season. So I'll go through it all as we go here. I was trying to compare this to Kevin Willard's second to last team, the one that didn't make the tournament. At least that team had Jameer Young and Julian Reese. This team really just has Pharrel Payne. And when a team like Iowa commits to shutting him down, he's human at the end of the day. It may not seem like it, but this is one of Pharrel Payne's weaker games of the year, I would say. And he still had 17 and 14. He just looked tired from going 1-on-3, at the very least 1-on-2. Every time he touched the ball. He was 9 of 18 from the free throw line tonight. Maryland generated 38 free throw attempts, and Payne had 18 of them. So he is a one-man free throw line trip himself. But he had 3 fouls. He had 5 turnovers. He was a little slow getting it out of the double team at certain times. But also, guys don't relocate. No one moves. They just stand around and watch him get paint touches or post touches. And the offense is so stagnant. Solomon Washington, especially, a friend of mine, Austin Bailey, shout out to him if he's listening to this, pointed this out to me while we're watching that Washington just sits in the corner and doesn't move a lot. And if he's not engaged in the possession, he does almost nothing. I remember distinctly watching for our film breakdown of Texas A&M last year. He was cutting all over the place. He was involved in the pick and roll sometimes as the screener and would actually roll to the basket. We see none of that level of engagement. I think stagnant is really just the word for this offense. They don't even do the high ball screens that you saw a ton last year quite as frequently. With this group, I don't know if they don't feel like they have the personnel to do it. It's a lot of weave, Payne post touches and kickouts, and then someone dribble, take a lightly or even moderately contested 3, and sometimes just heavily contested 3s in the case of David Coit. We don't run a single play to get him an easy look, and I know he struggled a little bit lately against bigger competition, but it's also because he's having to manufacture all of his touches. There's no way we can get probably the best shooter for my money, just a better look than him having to take a 24-foot step back. Of course the percentage is going to be trash because they're just bad shots because there's no other offense. And it's just one of those things where the more I watch Pharrel Payne, the more I'm impressed by him. And all I think about is imagine how this guy would look if he wasn't just surrounded by non-shooters pretty much at all times. It's kind of incredible he's still doing what he was doing. Bennett Sturts scored 39% of his team's points coming into this game, is responsible for 39% of his team's points. And Maryland looked surprised by that at times, and he kept getting lost. I don't know how you lose Bennett Sturts if you've even paid remotely any attention to them in the scouting breakdowns that they did. The man plays 38 minutes and scored 25 points on 10 of 17 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3. Multiple times in the first half, Miles Rice went under on screens for Sturts, and he made them pay for it. This is a team that continues to look disjointed. I'm going to keep breaking it down, but like, I feel bad for you guys listening to this. I feel bad for all of us watching it, but I don't want to come on this recap and be like doom and gloom and say the same thing every time. But it's hard when a team just like this is only a 19-point loss in air quotes, but they were not competitive in this game. It could have been 30, I think, realistically. If Payne hadn't done what he'd done, it probably would have been pretty ugly, honestly. Maryland shoots 36% from the field. They have 16 less shot attempts than Iowa. Like, that just cannot happen. They shoot 6 of 20 from three. That's 30%. That's pretty abysmal. Iowa conversely shoots 9 of 22 for 41%. Maryland is 24 of 38 from the free throw line, 63%. Now, a lot of those misses are Payne, but shout out to him for getting there. Adams gets to the line 10 times. That's really the only offense he can generate. He only makes 6 of them in 17 minutes. He just sat for large stretches early in the second half. They were clearly unhappy with something he was doing, and I think some of that is just an inability to shoot. He wasn't defending super well. He's just skinny, so against bigger, not bigger, but like Iowa looked bigger at every possession, or at every position except the five. They were bigger and honestly more athletic in some of those positions too. So for Adams, you're still a freshman. You got to put on bulk. He was getting hung on some screens and things like that. So I don't know if it was an effort thing. Miles Rice only plays 10 minutes in this game. He did not look good at all. Like I mentioned, going under on screens, the effort was just not there. I feel bad doing this early in the year because he's obviously got some rust to shake off here, but some of the same things we blamed, like, on Indiana and poor coaching last year, we're seeing again this year with him on this Maryland team, and it's looking disjointed, high turnovers. He had 3 turnovers in 10 minutes, shoots 0 of 3. The shot selection was not particularly good, in my opinion. So it's at some point, like, you can write it off as a 1-year failed experiment with a bad coaching staff at Iowa, at Indiana last year. But this year, when you see all those same things again, at a certain point, like, what's the common denominator? So I'm beginning to wonder if Miles Rice was going to be the guy I was hoping he would be. Like, this Maryland team needed him to be its best guard, and a guy that can only get on the court for 10 minutes with 3 turnovers is clearly not the guy here. To be honest with you, I was a little tuned out for parts of the second half, so maybe it was an injury or something else, I don't know, but I think it was mostly just the poor play. Pharrel Payne plays 38 minutes in this game, and again, he looked gassed to me, like with 5 minutes to go in the first half, so not a great sign. You get 33 minutes out of Solomon Washington. He also, just like I said, looked a little disengaged offensively. I think he gives you a lot of your competitiveness defensively. There were times in the first half where he was guarding Sturts, and Sturts was just hunting Saunders in ball screens, and you saw Washington been like, no, like pointing stuff out, telling him, hey, like, I'm going to fight over this. Don't switch it. And I think that was smart, but he just can't be everywhere by himself. And honestly, guys made a couple tough shots on him playing good defense early, and he looked a little frustrated by that as well. I'm just going to run down the other list of notes I took throughout the game here, and then I'll get some key stats for the game here too that kind of back up some of these points. Like I said, Washington raises the level defensively, but this team overall just has too many bad lapses. There's confusion on things. You'll see guys switching, like one guy switching and the other guy not. So 2 guys will go with either the ball handler or the roller, and someone ends up wide open. At this point in the season, it just can't continue to happen. We talked about Koch on the preview. He is a good shooter. He made 3 of 4 again today. He was wide open for 2 of them early. And just like, do you know the scouting report? Like, that's not the guy to leave. There's a decent amount of good shooters on this Iowa team, but there are certain ones you want taking wide open looks more than others. And a guy shooting 45% from 3 on the year is not one of those people you want to leave open. Like, I'm not a basketball genius, I promise, but I can tell you that's bad math at the end of the day. There's just, like I said, too many non-shooters around Payne. Every time he caught the ball with 1 foot in the paint, 3 people swarmed on him, and that's smart. That's how every Big Ten team is going to play Maryland. They're going to say, hey, all of you beat us from the 3-point line, and maybe there'll be enough games where Maryland can do it, but 6 of 20 is probably not going to get it done when the team you're playing against makes more than you and also gets 16 more shot attempts than you, and you're giving away a bunch of points off turnovers, which I want to circle back to as well. I don't understand the point of doing like soft ball pressure or 3/4 court picking up against a team like Iowa that wants to play slow anyway. Like that's the main reason is to do those kinds of things is to slow them down getting into their offense. You're playing to Iowa's advantage by doing that. You're basically just expending energy to let them do something they would have done intentionally. So I don't really fully get the rationale there. I'm fully willing to admit when I'm wrong or missing something obvious. So if you have some counter to that, leave it in the comments right now as you're watching. Also, if you can click the like button for us, I really appreciate that. That's the one thing I would love back from you guys is that like button in return for talking about this bad game any longer than I actually have to. Turnovers and missed defensive rebounds early hurt this Maryland team. It just 18 turnovers for the game is just not a sustainable recipe, especially when you're only forcing 10. So Maryland, like I said, forced 10 turnovers. They scored 4 points off of those 10 turnovers. Conversely, Iowa scores 21 points off of the 18 turnovers that they forced. That's a much better ratio. So not great for Maryland. Points in the paint, Iowa 44 to Maryland's 20. That is supposed to be the bread and butter of this team is we don't care if we miss shots, but we're going to collect every rebound and we're just going to obliterate you on the offensive glass. Well, no. Well, I mean, apparently we're not. Like, that's just not how this has unfolded so far this season. And that's sort of brings me to another larger point. Like, guys look kind of lost still. We're 10 games in. I get it's a whole brand new team and someone's going to listen to this anyway, but still say in the comments, well, it's 15 guys that have never played together before. But it's still 10 games. It's Division I college basketball. You have 15 guys on the coaching staff. You spend a ton of time together. You should look a little more cohesive at this point in the season. There are plenty of other teams in college basketball that have a ton of new faces and are somehow finding ways to make it work. There are 4 guys on this roster that were with this coaching staff last year. That's actually more than a lot of college basketball teams have right now. So it's one of two things for me. Either your system is so complicated that guys are still looking lost after 10 games. Well, then maybe your system isn't the right system for this modern era of college basketball, or you recruited the wrong people to play in that system. Either way, that's a failure from this staff overall. It could be both of those things or some combo of those two things. And just with that, like I keep seeing that, like, well, Buzz gets a full pass for this year. He can't be held accountable because he had to rebuild the roster from scratch at the 25th hour. I am somewhat sympathetic to like them getting a little bit late of a start, but it wasn't that late of a start. I think there's like some impression that these guys weren't watching guys all year and taking notes of people that if this guy wants to be in the portal, we want to take them for next year. Like this staff had identified the players they wanted long before they decided to make the decision to move over from Texas A&M to Maryland, and they keep a running list throughout the year, and by the time the portal opens, whether they've changed jobs or not, they were already actively preparing to recruit guys. Buzz Williams himself has admitted, to much controversy at the time, that he was recruiting Miles Rice at Texas A&M before taking the Maryland job and then brought him with him. That wasn't an accident. These are the guys that they were targeting to get for the most part. Now, there's also some percentage of this where those, it could be they targeted all these guys and they just missed on all of their evals this year. And some years that's going to happen in the portal. Like you may just whiff on more guys than you can afford to because you're not getting the same amount of time to recruit as you used to and really get to know guys and their character and all that kind of stuff. You're watching some video and having some like Zoom calls and then you're locking dudes down. Like, so that will happen more in this era of college basketball. But the other portion of this could be maybe they just didn't have enough money to go out and get all the guys they were really trying to prioritize. And either way, that's a bummer for Maryland basketball. So it's tough, but there are other programs with less money that are doing more with less. So either way, you didn't maximize on your evaluations and the resources you did have. So I get it. It sucks that they got a late start, but it is part of the job, and you're going to have to do those things. Do I expect it to be better next year? Yes. But I'm also not willing to give them a total pass. It is a data point, and it's something that they're going to have to show is the outlier and not something we should be somewhat warned about or worried about. Jeez, excuse me. Longer term here. All right, let's go through the rest of these notes. Let's see. It was 21-9 after a 10-0 Iowa run with 12:50 to go in the first half. They looked sharper. They looked better prepared. This game was basically over to me at that point with that 10-0 run. It just looked like it was okay. Like Maryland is never really going to fully cut away at this lead. They kept making little attempts to chip away at it, and then they'd give up a wide open three, or someone would just get stripped at the 3 point line, and someone in Iowa would have like a run out layup for another easy transition basket. And it's just interesting. Like they made the slowest Power Five team in the country look like the prime Golden State Warriors for a stretch of that first half. That death lineup that the Warriors had because they were just running on everything. When you turn the ball over and there's such bad turnovers, the teams have no chance, like no choice but to run out on you. That says something. The other teams are just leaving Solomon Washington wide open in the corner. I mentioned his willingness to just stand in a corner and take those open shots. At some point, people talk about know your personnel. You got to know your own self as well. Like self-awareness is huge here. If you're so open that many possessions in a row, it's probably a sign that a defense is asking you to do that. So I think you have to know better if you're Solomon Washington. Get a running start, barrel to the hoop, try to get fouled, something. He is a decent free throw shooter overall here. He goes 3 of 4 today. Like the 1 for 3 from the 3 point line is not going to be good enough. It is one of the better percentages for Maryland, unfortunately, but it's just not going to be sustainable offense longer term. They allowed 44 points to Iowa in a first half. That's just gross. Like this is a team that wants games to be like 25-20 at halftime. Like so that says something to you. Matt Germack on Twitter said that Maryland had just one player stay on the court for the entire final 10 minutes of the half, and that was Guillermo Del Pino. And no, that is not a typo. The freshman point guard, averaging 9.5 minutes per game, has more minutes today than Darius Adams, Miles Rice, and Isaiah Watts. He also has 0 points. I watch a lot of Patriot League basketball for the coverage I do for American University and some of the other local teams, Navy and things like that. He would not be an above average Patriot League player. Like that just is flat out. I'm not trying to be like dismissive of him or demeaning or anything. It just is where he is as a freshman. Like if you remember Marty Collins, the NBA player out of Temple, his son Madden Collins on AU as also a freshman, and I would trade the 1-for-1 in a heartbeat. So this is not a player that is going to be productive at the Power 5 level, and you're choosing to make a statement and give him all those minutes. It's clearly a sign that you're unhappy with what all those other veteran guards are giving you. Diggy Coy plays 25 minutes in this game, finishes with 13 points on 4 of 10 shooting overall, 3 of 6 from the 3 point line, had 3 turnovers, no assists. He's really just like going to be some complimentary scoring for you because they're either letting him be a distributor and not putting him in a position to score, or letting him stand around off ball while someone else does something crazy. I would be putting him in as many pick and roll situations with Pharrel Payne as possible, and they have to account for Payne, so maybe that gets Coit a little bit more space. Use him in the Wade Taylor role from last year. I know he's smaller. I know certain athletes are going to like prevent him from getting shots off, but again, it has to be better than like having no movement while he dances around and then takes a 24-foot step back. And that's not even a knock on him. It's just where the offense is at, or the lack of offense that they have going right now. So I don't know. Let's just start to wrap this one up here. Again, I think your Santa Fe Cafe stat of the game is the points in the paint, 44-20. This team can't do that. That's a pride thing at a certain point. It's an effort thing at a certain point. You have to say, this is not a particularly dynamic or athletic Iowa team. We can't afford to just get bruised around the rim. And that's exactly what happened. I think your other stat of the night is the 18 turnovers that turns into 21 points off those turnovers. It's just unacceptable. Like, you have to be better about the ball. And Buzz Williams has talked about those things. They know those things. So I've been hard on the coaching staff right now, but at a certain point, they're not out there. Like, Buzz Williams is not the one throwing the ball away. Buzz Williams is not the one getting blown by on the perimeter and then having no one rotate over to pick anyone up. He's not the one failing to rotate and challenge 3-point shooters in the corner. So he is the guy that has to motivate them and push the right buttons to get those guys to do that. He is the one who has to put guys on the court that are going to be able to do those things. So it's sort of an unenviable position for all of them to be in right now. It just sort of is what it is with this team. I think maybe there's still an opportunity for them to figure some of these things out. I would like to see some adjustments, though. They're 10 games in. I think you have enough sample size to know that what you're doing and the way you're playing is probably not conducive to winning. So what can you do to change? Can you be more straight up? Can you play just more traditional defense and just go straight man to man? Or can you be even more aggressive and pick up full court and just, hey, our guys aren't particularly good, but we got a lot of them, so we're going to burn them all out by playing as hard as we possibly can for all these minutes. Like, there's got to just be something else that you try to do, some other buttons you try to push, adjustments that you can potentially make. I don't know what they are. That's not my job to figure out, but I want to see buzz in the staff. Like, this is where you find out about what your coaching staff is really about. It's when you have down years like this from a personnel perspective. Like, can you change some things and do enough stuff to inspire these guys to play some style of winning basketball? So we're going to find out a lot about him as a coach and what we're in for the rest of his tenure here overall. I'm not doing the fire buzz after 1 year kind of thing. This is probably just shaping up to be a bit of a lost year, and that's fine. I think a lot of people expected that given his slow starts at each of his past programs. But I think in the portal era, there's a little more expectation that you hit the ground running a little bit more than they have, but they've got to learn the Big Ten style of play to some extent. So I think you get a little tiny bit of a pass for that as well. And hopefully they just learn from this and can build both a system that guys can play in and it's conducive to learning quickly on the fly when there is a lot of roster turnover, because there will be a lot of roster turnover again next year. A lot of these guys will not be back after a season like this. A guy like a Miles Rice being benched after 10 minutes, that kind of thing is not something that's like a great sign that this is a dude who's going to want to be back next year. I'm not reporting he's trying to leave or anything like that, but those kinds of guys don't typically sign up for year 2 of something when it seems like a marriage that's not a perfect fit. So there will be a lot of new faces with this group next year, plus all of the production they have going out in Washington, Payne, Coit, etc., Saunders. So, like, what can the staff do to quickly get guys geared up and ready to play? That will be really big for next season. I'm sorry I've talked too much about next season already when we've literally just played our first Big Ten game, but I am starting to think long-term about this group already. Hopefully they can make an adjustment. Their next game is against Michigan. I think we will learn a whole lot about this group as well. I thought this was an opportunity for them to step up and say, we're not the team that got spanked twice out in Vegas. They didn't do that. They keep it going. Luckily, they will be at home. Hopefully, there's a good turnout for them in an Xfinity Center, and I'll be in attendance for that one. There are a lot of local Michigan alums. I know a couple going, so hopefully it's not one of those situations where half the people there are wearing maize and blue or whatever the shit their colors are. So let's turn out. Maybe we can make a little bit of a difference here and keep these guys fired up. And I don't know. This is, if you believe in transitive property at all, Gonzaga beat the shit out of Maryland, and Michigan did the same to them. So not looking particularly good on paper, but this is your opportunity to show that you're more than what you've showed so far this season. So I think there are some fighters on this team. I think there are some guys that have pride in the way that they play, and hopefully we see that. And I think if you're Buzz, do what you do. Play the guys that are going to play hard and try to do the things that you want them to do. And you set the culture and the accountability in year 1 so that the guys that are back next season learn what they can and can't get away with here and know what they're signing up for if they decide to come back next season. So hopefully it's just a better performance. We'll preview that game as we get a little closer to it, so stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you for listening, and remember to fear the podcast.